Hi, my name's Sue and I work with glass, usually found glass from charity shops and things like that. But I've been gifted this absolutely gorgeous decanter with a lovely stopper and some crystal glasses to go with it. So I can make something nice out of this. Not sure what it's going to be just yet, but I'm sure I'll make something nice. However, I do appreciate that sometimes it's really hard to give away things, especially if they've come with a sentimental attachment. And I think this one did. But of course, not everybody has the room or the space or the inclination to store a decanter. Nobody really uses them these days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cute little mushroom out of this stopper as a thank you gift. And this is how I do it. So the first thing I want to do is separate this piece. Just see where I've put the little Sharpie mark. I'm going to just cut that off. So it gives me a nice kind of mushroom head to work with. So this is going to be cut off using a diamond saw. Now this is one of two pieces of equipment that we're not allowed to actually use in uni. We have to get somebody, a technician, to do it for us. And now thanks to that lovely technician, I've got two halves of my original decanter bung, top and a bottom. The bottom we'll use for something else, but the top's for the mushroom. My next choice is to decide which stem works best with that mushroom head. I mean, it's not a mushroom head, but I'm going to call it mushroom head. So I've got some slightly different shapes here. I'm not sure which one works best. So we'll just try them out. I think that one would need pretty much cut down quite a bit, but it's quite nice and I quite like it. So I'm not sure about that one. That's just a simple wine glass stem. Sometimes simple's better. And that one's just a bit chunkier on the bottom, so I'm not sure that it works. The proportions seem a little bit off, or rather it does from this angle. So I'm thinking the one that gives me the better proportions is this little wine glass stem here. I like that. We'll go with this. Now these pieces eventually are going to be UV glued, and I wish it was as easy just to stick them together at this point, but it's not. I've got to get these polished down to at least a 600 grit on the top for gluing, but I really like to take it all the way to cerium polish because it gives me a lovely, lovely clear, sparkly finish. So we're going to do that. So this machine is a grinding wheel and it runs with 120 grit, which comes down via this little channel here with some water. Oh, you can see who my favourite pop star was of the 80s there. And although this piece has already been ground down, when I cut it, I need to make sure that I get it absolutely level or the mushroom's going to look wonky. So I do that by sliding it back and forth on this grinding wheel and just checking it now and again. So it took no time at all to get it level because it had already been ground. So I'm quite happy with that. And on to the mushroom head. I'm not going to take this really flat right to the bottom, but I'm just going to make sure that this bit's flat and level. So again, I don't get a wonky mushroom. So back and forward on the grinding wheel until I'm happy. And I'm just judging this by eye, and I think that looks pretty level, so I'm quite happy with that. So both the top and the stem are ground to the point that I think they're level. I'm just going to have a look, check it for size, stand back a bit, see if it looks level. Does it? Yeah, I think that's good. Just a closer view for you. Do you think it's level? I think we're good to go. I'm now covering the piece I want to polish with Sharpie, and this means when I get to the polishing station, once that Sharpie has gone, I've polished it well enough. So this is the next part. It's called hand lapping. It's all done by hand and I'm using a 320 grit. Put a little bit of powder onto a glass plate, add a drop or two of washing up liquid, this stops the friction, and some water to make it into a paste. Then I'm going to take my piece to the grit and polish in a figure of 8 movement until all that Sharpie has disappeared. Now I'm going to speed this up. I honestly don't go this fast, but it's quite a boring process. And there we go, all the Sharpie marks gone, so I need to do the stem. The stem's a little bit trickier because this is all about balance and it's top heavy, so I've just got to make sure that I've got it in the right position and do, again, the figure of 8 movement. And yep, that one looks good too. And now for a rinse under some clean water. Now this bit is really, really important. You've got to make sure that none of that 320 grit goes on to the next station, which is a 600 grit, because the one tiny little bit of grit that gets in there will cause a big scratch. And we don't want that because we'd have to start again. Now when you're polishing, you're obviously taking a layer off, and this can mean that some of the edges can get a little bit sharp around the edge there. So I need to take that off, because if it gets sharp, it'll chip and crack, and again, you know, I'm going to have to try and fix it. So we're going to try and fix that before it even happens by rubbing that with a piece of sandpaper, which is about 400 grit. And I'm just going to rub that all the way around and make that edge nice and smooth. And it does feel so much smoother. It's lovely. Right, we'll do the stem as well. Exactly the same, just round and round on that 400 grit sandpaper, just to take the edge off. The next stage of hand lapping is the 600 grit, and again I'm going to mark it up with a Sharpie, so when I've polished all that off I know that I've done a good job. Doing the same on the stem. And once dry, this Sharpie won't come off by rubbing it or even washing it. It's got to be polished. So as just mentioned, this is a 600 grit polishing station. Again, big sheet of glass. I'm going to pop a bit of powder down. A little bit too much there, so I'm going to need a couple of drops of washing up liquid. I'm a bit heavy-handed today. And some water to make it into a paste. And just like on the last one, we're going to work in a figure of 8 until all that Sharpie is gone. Swapping over to do the same with the stem. That's looking good. So now time for another wash to get all that grit off. And because I've done another round of polishing, this edge has sharpened up again just ever so slightly. So I'm going to go back round the edges of both of these with that 400 grit sandpaper again. They're looking much better, but still not shiny enough. So off to the pumice wheel. This is a dirty machine with a big cork wheel that needs a good soaking before it starts, and then what happens is you turn it on and get splattered with all of this pumice mud, which is nice. I'm just coating the glass in a handful of this pumice mud, and then I'll take it to the cork wheel and give it a good buffer. Again, this part of the video is speeded up a little bit, so not to bore you too much. But within that mud, you can really see how this is starting to shine now. So let's do the stem. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So time for another good wash. And look how clean and shiny they are. But there's one more stage, one more final polish. This machine's a little bit cleaner. This is the Serium polish or Jeweler's Rouge. It's like a pink milk that goes on. Again, the wheel needs a good soaking before it's turned on. It's a felt wheel, and you get splattered with pink bits this time. And I'm just going to put some of that mixture on the wheel and on my glass and give it the final polish. Again, I'll speed it up. I'm giving the little stem the same treatment. It doesn't need much, just a little buff. And after a final good wash, look how shiny they are. Let's just have a little recap of how it looked to start with. So we've gone from this to this. Lovely. So it's now time to cold fuse these two pieces together. I'm using a UV lamp and a UV glue. The glue sets in seconds and creates an incredibly strong bond. There will be some strobe effects when I turn the light off, but I'll give you a little warning of that. The glue is a Ball Verifix. It's quite an expensive glue. We have to be really careful with it, but you only use 2 little drops on something this size. I'm putting some gloves on, following the health and safety rules, because really I don't want it to be stuck to my fingers. So I'm just going to place 2 little drops on top of the stem there. Not that you can see because I've got my hand in the way, but it is just 2 little drops. The glue is going away somewhere nice and dark, so it's not affected by the UV light. And before I put the torch on, I'm going to get it all into position just to double check, because there's no going back really. You can actually get this glue undone once it's set, but that's in a kiln at about 450 degrees. So it's a bit of a pain in the bum, so you need to get it right the first time. Right, the strobe effect is going to begin shortly. I'll let you know when it's finished. I'm turning the UV lamp on and I'm turning the overhead light off. And I'm going to let that UV magic do its work. I'm just going to give it a little nudge to check that it's glued, and it is. So I'm going to turn it over and give it a bathe from the underneath, just to make doubly sure that that glue has set properly. And there we are, all glued. I can wobble it about, it's not going anywhere, so I'm happy with that. Strobe lighting off. And I'm just taking my little mushroom outside. This is the National Glass Centre, which won't be here too much longer, unfortunately, because it's getting demolished next year. But this is my favourite fence post to photograph my mushrooms on. And the sun always seems to shine on this little fence post, which is good. Look how lovely that looks in the sunlight. I'm going to zoom in, let you have a good look. Sparkly. So I hope you've enjoyed following along with me while I've made this mushroom. It would be most lovely if you gave me a follow, and maybe I'll see you at the next one. Bye for now.